those of you who watch this channel probably found me through the BlackMagic Cinema Camera, which is a camera that I still love to use, the old 2.5k of 7-8 years ago. And I did have a few projects lined up this month, a few of which I was definitely going to use the BlackMagic Cinema Camera, but we're in lockdown here again in London for the next couple of months. There isn't really going to be anything happening for me, so I've decided to share some test footage that I made using the BlackMagic Cinema Camera and the Zhiyun Crane 2 gimbal. Maybe because the BlackMagic Cinema Camera is quite a bulky thing, and I keep it in a tilter cage, which makes it even bigger and heavier. The tilter cage is quite heavy itself. And not only that, the BlackMagic Cinema Camera needs a V-mount battery to power it, because the internal battery at the moment, in terms of the age of the BlackMagic Cinema Camera, the internal battery lasts for about 10 minutes. So these are all things that were stopping me from putting it on the gimbal, because I didn't have anywhere to attach the V-mount battery. But I've seen a few people using the BlackMagic Cinema Camera with other gimbals online, and I realised, even though it's not a very elegant solution, you can just tape the V-mount battery to the handle of the gimbal. It's a bit of a heavy setup, I give you that. You're looking 6-7 kilograms plus once you've added the V-mount battery and the monitor, which, I mean, I can't shoot without the Atomos monitor, because the monitor, particularly on the BlackMagic Cinema Camera, is awful. And it's not even in a position that you can see it when you've got it on the gimbal, or in any way that you can see it, unless you're going to hold it in front of your face when you shoot. So I can't shoot without the Atomos, so that has to go on the gimbal. So does the V-mount battery, because the internal battery of the BlackMagic Cinema Camera lasts about 10 minutes at this point. So it's a bit of a heavy setup. But apart from that, the images that you can achieve with it, and I'm definitely going to use this in the next couple of months, and I'll share that footage with you, but the image that you can achieve, like in that real sort of cinematic style, shooting CinemaDNG Raw, I mean, nobody can tell me that this camera isn't a bargain in 2021. These days you can get the Zhiyun Crane 2 for about £400, I think, more or less. I paid a lot more for that about 3 years ago when it was brand new. It served me very, very well, and the payload of 3.5 kilos can still manage most things. Like I said, I was maybe looking into a gimbal, I think the Zhiyun Crane 3 for the Ursa Mini, but it's just the weight. It's the weight of having to carry such a setup for, if you're on a shoot, it's going to be plenty of hours. Even if you can put it down and rest in between, your arms and your back can only take so much, which is one of the problems with this setup. But it's definitely a new lease of life for the BlackMagic Cinema Camera to be able to achieve these sort of shots rather than handheld or tripod every single time. It's a nice addition to know that I can do this with a gimbal. There are a few issues with the SDI cable and the D-tap cable affecting the balance slightly, because they're quite thick, heavy cables, and it can drag a bit on the camera and affect the motor, so you don't always get a perfect tracking shot. I mean, there is a slight wobble in there, and I think that's also the fact that you're pushing the Zhiyun Crane almost to its max in terms of the payload that it can handle, and it is generally just a heavy setup. Most of those wrinkles can be ironed out in post using stabilization. These were just a few shots that I took around central London earlier this week using the Canon FD 24mm vintage lens converted to EF mount using the Metabones 0.64 Speedbooster, just to test the setup really. And most I could do was about an hour before my arms and back started to really give up. If you're going to do this on a proper shoot, on a set, or in a proper situation, you can take breaks and elongate the use for sure. And it is something I'm definitely going to utilize going forward. Now I realize I can put it on the gimbal. Kind of opens up a few extra avenues. Now, nobody can tell me that the BlackMagic Cinema Camera 2.5k isn't a useful camera in 2021. The footage that I'm continually getting out of this camera, which is 8 years old, it's, for me, it's one of the top 5 consumer cameras right now that I would definitely want to own, and I'm so glad I do own it. And I can't recommend enough, if you're looking to spend 3 or 4 grand on the Sony A7S III, fine, that's going to do quite a few more things in low light and slow motion, etc. But if you're on a budget and you can pick up the BlackMagic Cinema Camera, try and get the Micro Four Thirds mount. It's more versatile. You can put a Metabones Speedbooster on it and attach EF lenses. Try and pick one up on eBay. I'm sure you can get one for a reasonable price if you're on a budget. You can be up and running with that and a V-mount battery and a gimbal, possibly for around £1,000. Don't tell me that that is not already the bargain of 2021.